Again, just minutes of...
Well, when you say deaf line, Cleves, do you mean deaf as in hard of hearing or deaf?
Well, you know I can't say my...
Deaf line.
Deaf line. Deaf line, isn't it?
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome to the 9th episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth on the south coast of England.
I'm John Pountney in South Wales, which is in the south of Wales.
And I'm Ross in Dorchester in southern England. And today's episode, Mind the Doors! We're covering Deathline or Raw Meat.
I knew you were going to do that impression, Ross. I knew it.
In the depths of the city, a nightmare grows real. A sinister evil that festered for generations in its moldering tomb. Who stalks those deadly shadows? Whose cry echoes their horror? Whose blood will flow when it strikes again?
Are you sure he was alive when you left him?
How many times?
Are you absolutely certain he didn't come up after?
Yes.
You mean he did?
He did not.
I think we were lucky.
Why?
Whatever he saw was probably watching us.
Well, how could they survive without food?
Because I should imagine that as each one died, the others ate him.
Is there any way out of here except up those stairs?
Why the nephew?
Is there? You tell me!
What strange hunger drives it to prey on the young and strong?
Cat? Cat, you all right?
An experience in ultimate terror, so fearful that no additional scenes can be shown in this preview.
Late one night at the Russell Square tube station in the London Underground, university students Patricia and her American exchange student boyfriend Alex find an unconscious man on the stairwell. Fearing that he may be diabetic, Patricia checks his wallet and finds a card that reads, James Manfred, OBE. They inform a police officer, but find that Manfred has vanished. Inspector Calhoun is assigned to look into the disappearance. Calhoun questions Alex and suggests that he and Patricia robbed the man. Calhoun's colleague tells him about the history of the London Underground, particularly the Victorian railway workers who constructed the tunnels under dire conditions, and an urban legend that a group of descendants who survived an 1892 cave-in still live below ground. Meanwhile, one of the last surviving members of a family of these railway workers watches his pregnant female companion die. They have survived in the underground by resorting to cannibalism of the patrons. In an empty chamber, Manfred's body lies mutilated. The man, now left in complete solitude, goes into a brutal, murderous rage.
Don't we all?
Deathline premiered in London on November the 7th, 1972 as a double bill with the triple echo and was later released in the United States under the title Raw Meat on October the 3rd, 1973, in an edited cut to avoid an X rating.
The Triple Echo is a brilliant film.
Oh, okay. Should we put that on our list as well then, John?
Well, it's not horror, but I had no idea that they were contemporaries. It's is it Glenda Jackson? It's Oliver Reed, and it's a man who pretends to be a woman for the whole of the film. It's set in the war, and Oliver Reed has the hots for it, and I think at the end Oliver Reed kills her.
It's like the Crying Game. It's the original Crying Game.
It is a little bit like that.
Spoilers.
It's a very, very, very good rural thriller, slightly horror-ish. It's full of really, really uncomfortable interludes. I can't remember if it is Glenda Jackson or the other lady who was friends with Sheila Delaney and came in my mother's shop, but I can't remember her name now.
The one who is this the one who wrote those kitchen sink dramas?
Yes.
Well, that's Sheila Delaney.
That is Sheila Delaney. No, she's friends with Sheila Delaney. She did a lot of protesting in the late 60s, wearing big glasses.
Janet Street Porcher.
Vanessa Redgrave.
Redgrave.
I can't remember, but it's one of those two. It's either Glenda Jackson or her. So anyway, that's a great film.
Yeah, but that's not what we're reviewing tonight. We're reviewing a bit of Raw Meat.
Oh.
So we watched it. I watched the version which is entitled Raw Meat. So I'm concerned that I'm watching the cut version of this.
Yes, okay. I thought that about 10 minutes to go. I realised because I've got the DVD of Deathline, and the way to spot that you're watching Raw Meat is the fact that it says Raw Meat at the start in the wrong typeface. So they didn't even bother to match the typeface to, is it Gil Songs or something like that?
Yeah, it doesn't like Gil Sounds,
Yeah, so the title sequence is lovely. It's a lovely typeface, except for the bit where it says Raw Meat. It looks like someone's coloured it in with a magic marker.
Of course, Gil Sounds is the font they use on the Underground, isn't it? So
that's
that's what they've used there.
Well, that's a brilliant fact to start with already, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But so I really enjoyed the intro sequence, the very slow pull and focus in and out of like seedy London.
Seedy London.
Old school Soho, I've written.
Yeah, this is what you always imagine London was going to be like growing up. In like the 80s.
Raymond Review Bar.
Yeah, I thought it was still going to be like this when we went to London as students and stayed in the Generator, and I stumbled from the Tourist Steakhouse past the British Museum late one night when I'd lost everyone.
Yeah. Do you remember shouting Margot at Penelope Keith when we was in London?
No. I really don't.
Of course, the remarkable thing there, John, is, of course, being close to the British Museum means that you were close to the setting of this film, which is Russell Square Tube.
Exactly, yeah.
So who is this actor? The guy, the bowler hat wearing OBE chap, what's his name? James Manfred.
The knob.
Yeah. So it's an actor who always plays sort of an upper class.
James Cousins.
So what's he been in before? What do I recognise him
Flowery Twats he was in. He was in, I think he was in Some Others Do Have Them as well. Tonight,
yes.
Most familiar to me from being in Villain, where he's roughed up and then I think stabbed by Richard Burton, which was the year previous to this film. So he looks very similar because obviously it's only a year different. But he's a very recognisable British actor of that era, isn't he? And basically does nothing in this film at all except get kicked in the ghoulies by a prostitute and then gets killed. Not by the prostitute or the sex worker, sorry.
We have quite a long...
The title sequence is quite long with the thumping jazz mellotron or whatever it is, Moog.
But it looks
opening.
great. You know, the colours, and I just love... John, is there like a particular film stock they were using this time to get these lovely greens and reds and everything? So everything's so vivid. It's just really
it's Technicolor or the Kodak equivalent, which is Eastman color.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a film stock specifically developed to be very punchy and very vivid.
Yeah, just so evocative of the time and stuff.
I'm sure that Technicolor isn't Kodak, but they are. I think they were competitors. Eastman colour is what the Hammer films are usually shot in because it rendered red particularly vividly.
The reds and the greens
for blood
look great in this.
It's a good start, but I think the title sequence is a bit overlong for an hour and a half film. It's like 10% of the film, it feels like, because it's just him looking at calling cards and stuff.
And going in and out of strip bars and shows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
with a card that basically says, allow this man to do whatever the hell he likes. I was like, where'd you get one of them? What do you have to? Is that what you get when you get an OBE? Along with the little medal? The Queen gives you you can now be a platinum rogue.
When you start worshipping the satanic rites of Dracula, you get put into this special club.
You get one of those. I say, okay, cool.
Do we think that this film is happening contemporaneously to Dracula AD 1972?
Exactly. It is.
Yes, again, I did think it's another film taking another. I spent more time looking at 1970s London of late.
So they're friends with Jessica and the group, aren't they? We're a group, grandfather.
But one of the things watching this film, just seeing the underground, seeing like the sleazy side of Soho and all that kind of stuff, it was just like American Werewolf in London just took so much from this film. This all seems so familiar, and it was American Werewolf in London, and I thought Creep is sort of the quite up-to-date horror film set on the underground, which I watched the next day.
Up-to-date.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things I say up to date, and it means within the last 20 years.
20 years,
exactly.
Yeah.
But
is that any good, Ross?
We should watch Creep. I like Creep a lot.
Yeah, I watched it again the other night. There's not much of a story to it.
It goes on a bit,
just like this.
Really, James?
Yeah.
Oh god, I didn't enjoy it at all.
Really?
It was absolutely dreadful. Yeah.
Oh, controversial.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it in due course, I'm sure.
Let's buckle up.
I will point out that I worry as to maybe like the previous General Witchfinders we've done. Of course, has been under lockdown when I've had a bit more time to watch these things and what have you. Last night I'd had a 12-hour day, a 12-hour teaching day that had a parents' evening at the end of it. And then I stuck this on, so I might not have been in the best frame of mind to watch it.
It's a great film to relax to.
Oh, God.
Prog jazz intro, followed by lots of production design of dead bodies.
That was a good bit. We meet the two young people coming off of the very 70s strain and go through the scuzzy, dirty, abandoned underground, and they find the body of the chap from All Mothers Do.
For our international listeners, we say that not all London tube stations have got escalators. Lots of them have got lifts, and they were absolutely right. Russell Square is one of the ones that's got a lift. So they get into the lift, which is manned and not automatic, and they go, there's someone being knocked down there. And in true kind of English, more than my job's worth style, he's like, I can't do anything about that now. I've got to run this lift, don't I?
I'd have to plug the phone in.
And what have you. And then so after kind of bickering with him, they go back down and find that he has vanished.
Yes.
Of course.
Well, me and Beck were watching this, my wife Beck, and we were just saying, this is exactly the conversation we'd have. She would not want to help this person or stop in any way, and I'll be the one. And they've been, when we used to live in...
Cleaver would identify with him, though.
Exactly.
So many times he's woken up.
Face down.
It's true.
Wondering where he is in what's it called?
The Welsh Club? Or,
no.
Jago.
Jago.
Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
Or face down in Poole Park after a night out with James. That was the best one.
Oh god, that was good. That one.
Yeah. Watch the son come up with a tramp talking about his ex-wife. What was I saying? So me and Beck were talking about, because there's many times when we lived in quite a rough part of Weymouth where there would be someone laying face down in the road, and I'm like, we need to help this person. She's like, no, just keep walking.
Leave him.
There wasn't
it's the law of the jungle, Ross.
Yeah, there was one point where we was coming home, and we lived right near the train station, where quite recently to that point someone had been decapitated in the taxi.
Brilliant.
In the taxi shop.
Yeah.
And a woman was running down the road going, help me. And Beck goes, leave it. And I was going, no, you can't leave it. And she goes, and then at that point, we were living in the top floor flat of a house which had been split in two.
Victorian terrace, wasn't it? It was a very large Victorian terrace.
Yeah, and the woman had run into our sort of shared hallway, and she goes, you can deal with this. And she went upstairs and closed the door. And I was going to the girl, are you okay? Are you okay? And at that point, some guy tried barreling into the door, and he's going, that's my girlfriend. And I was like trying to push the door shut, and I locked her up, and I go, you're right. And and then she was in the corner, like just facing the wall, with like the smallest rolled up cigarette, like on the phone to the police, going, He's had me locked up in the house. He won't let me leave. I've been in there for 3 months and I've just escaped. And I'm going, are you all right? Are you all right? Yeah,
would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah. And this guy's like banging on the door, going, that's my girlfriend. And I go, she don't want to see you, mate. Yeah, fuck off. And then he disappeared, and she just completely was not acknowledging that I was there at all, just like staring at the wall. And then she slowly unlocked the door and just disappeared off into the night. And
way.
Yeah, when I went upstairs, Beck was asleep.
Scenes from a marriage.
Yeah.
This sounds like the start of a horror film.
Yeah.
It does.
And then you see her every night at the same time, but you can just slightly
ghostly,
see through her.
Small roll up.
I got many
between
stories.
her lips.
I've got many stories like that, but
just the glow of the roll up. That's
John's autobiography. The glow of the roll up. So we now meet the chap out of Halloween, Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance.
Yeah. Who is in his police station with a roaring fire.
Oh, how much did we all love this room? I love the
whole thing.
I love the coal fire. I love him blowing his nose. He is on absolutely top form in this part. He stirs his tea with a dart. It's
gutted that he's got tea bags.
Yeah, the WPC as she would have been at the time.
Juliet Bravo.
And then we've got Norman Rossington, who is famous as playing the Beatles manager in Hard Day's Night, amongst other things. He's excellent. I could watch a series of films just with these two, basically. The young couple I'm not interested in. I love what the girl looks like. She's got a tremendous hairstyle. She's very pretty. She cannot act.
She cannot.
Toffee.
I've written abysmal acting everywhere.
And the American guy.
He's awful too.
He's dreadful as well.
I'm sure that he was American just so they could sell this in America.
To America. Later on, featuring the line, "Oh, my books." She says when she leaves her books on the tube. I'm like, that's the worst delivery I've ever seen.
There is also a bit where they have an argument about her new shampoo that she's just bought that day.
Fucking hell. That's what I mean. It's the most bizarre film.
Again, we suffer from the problem of someone writing dialogue for young people and then someone writing dialogue for hackneyed police officers. It's exactly like Dracula AD 1972. As soon as Inspector Murray comes into Dracula AD 1972, it really comes to life. Yeah. And thank God it happens a lot sooner with this film. Pleasance comes in and literally just chomps his way through the scenery.
He's fantastic.
He is really brilliant.
He is an actor I've always been aware of his name. I've only ever seen him in Halloween films, and he doesn't do much in those.
No.
And I never knew why he was so highly regarded, and he's just absolutely brilliant in this film. It's just great. Yeah.
I've put down the Sweeney via RADA, because, of course, this predates the 1970s of the Sweeney, which feature similar kind of no-nonsense cops. Whereas, like, John Thor and Dennis Waterman were all, right, you're next, get your trousers on.
Get your trousers
what have you. Pleasance is more kind of, get your haircuts.
Get your haircut.
He says, get your haircut. Where's my football coupon? He says, insanely at one point.
Where's my cup of tea? Using tea bags. They're standard supply
issue.
now, sir. A standard issue, yeah. Brilliant. Let's keep the film in that scene and forget about Patricia and whoever it is. Alex.
They then do, as we mentioned in the preamble, they just do, and this is for me one of the weaknesses of it, they just give you the explication in one big information dump. And it's given this to us by Mr. Bouquet.
Clive
from
Smith.
Keeping Up Appearances, Clive Smith, who turns up and just kind of goes, right, anyway, so the whole thing is that, funnily enough, some people, the thing about the tubes is that some, when they were building them back in the late, the late 19th century, some people got trapped down there, but, there are air pockets and it's big, and some people say they could still be alive. And you're like, if you didn't explicitly tell us that till then.
By being cannibals?
And eating rats.
The thing is, I completely... I missed him saying all that. I must have zoned out.
You're kidding,
So
Ross.
not until I wrote
a 5-minute monologue.
Yeah, until I wrote the script for that tonight. I was going, okay, that's why they were down there. I just completely didn't. I didn't get that at all.
It is really disappointing, that part, because it just gives away all the ideas too quickly. Doesn't it? There's no
absolutely. For me, I was just like, okay. Whereas, kind of the whole thing of, who on earth is doing this? And who are these people? If that would have been revealed closer to the end, I think that would have just had a bit more of an impact.
So Clive Swift. So it's interesting to see Clive Swift here, because he must have been in between The Stalls of Barchester, which is, I think was Christmas 71, and then A Warning to the Curious, which was 72, where he plays a recurring character, which is quite weird, who isn't in the actual M.R. James stories, but he's kind of invented for the TV versions. But it's nice to see him pop up. And you think, what was he up to? Who was he hanging out with? Who did he go for a drink with?
I think only you think of these things, John.
Well, I always like to imagine what they do after. What car do you think he had at this point? Do you think he had an Austin 1300? He went to the Beefeater, the local Beefeater, or the...
Well, apparently he's a bit of a knob, because hearing all the things,
allegedly.
anyone asks him about anything to do with Doctor Who after...
Is that what
yeah.
I just heard a lot of people who try and talk to him about him being in Doctor Who, and he's not very receptive to it.
Do you want me to tell you the story about when I saw them filming Keeping Up Appearances in Leamington Spa?
Oh, we certainly do.
Many, many times I've seen them filming Keeping Up Appearances in Leamington Spa and Kenilworth. What they would usually do was tow Hyacinth and Richard round on a flatbed truck.
Wow.
And their Rover was on the back of the flatbed truck without the windscreen in it. So when they're driving round Leamington Warwick, they're actually just on the back of a truck and doing this on the steering wheel, going, oh, Hyacinth, yes, ha, ha, ha. But then me and my friend Richard watched a scene once where the father, Daddy, was being pushed into the back of Onslow's Granada through the back window.
Nice.
In a diving suit, in a frog suit, I think with water skis on.
Classic seat.
Yeah, and I think that would have been summer 1995, and that was a pivotal moment in my psyche to see that. To see a grown man push through a window in a frog suit.
Well, they always used to film all the exteriors of One Foot in the Grave. Outside my nan's house.
No.
Yeah. Bournemouth. Bournemouth is One Foot in the Grave.
One foot in the grave.
Anyway, so back to it. So after this big information dump, we then get what can only be described really as the first proper horror scene as we're introduced to the layer of the cannibals. I genuinely thought, at this point, oh, okay, after that very slow start and what have you, now it's going up a notch. Because, it's pretty kind of visceral horror, isn't it? There's people that they've, earlier victims that they've got and
proper meat
and killed. And
lots of gore. Really,
and it's a long pan shot.
Brilliant.
Isn't it? But then, and it's start off with, there's not much noise or much sound. I thought, okay, that's good. And then I've just put in there, there's a really inappropriate soundtrack cue. It kind of goes, well, that's just undercut the horror.
The music at this point isn't very horrific or even suspenseful. So you've got this brilliant, really long one-take tracking shot, which goes right through this layer and then out through these lovely arches, which are beautifully lit. And then you get this kind of sound montage of the events, the cave-in, which has trapped them all in there, even though they're not trapped. But maybe, maybe we won't mention that part at all. But so you have a really amazing kind of 4 or 5 minute take, which is very interesting. But you have the very odd, again, pseudo
Sitcom.
jazz. Yeah. When he's just slit someone's throat to try and feed his wife some raw blood.
Yeah, but the tunnels in this, I am sure they use the same tunnels in Creep, because I watched Creep the next day, and it was like, this looks like they were filming a lot the same place.
Yeah.
But interesting fact that I'm sure you guys have read this, that the man, the cannibal man, was going to be Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Now, just because this is on Wikipedia, part of me thought, there's no way that can be true. I can't believe. What is the source of that information? Is that
Marlon Brando himself?
It's on IMDb as well, so it's absolutely...
wow! In that case, it must be the case. But yes, that is very, very strange. And my thing, I know John will immediately know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see if Ross does. When we see, the man, the cannibal, Jethro Tull, Aqualung.
Yeah.
He has and then that set me off on a bit of a Aqualung riff. And I looked into it, and insanely, Aqualung had come out a year before this.
Oh, interesting.
And then that made me think, I wonder. And then when I looked into it, it said that the cover of Jethro Tull, the prog rock behemoths, of their album cover, Aqualung, Ian Anderson, you got it.
Yeah.
That the cover was based on a series of paintings of homeless people and tramps that Ian Anderson's wife had done.
Oh.
No way.
Yes.
Well, that's
so
strange,
I think that part of me was thinking, oh wow, that's kind of odd, weird connections to
that is
all of this. But yeah, that was definitely the vibe, and indeed Ian Anderson himself, because he kind of dressed up, didn't he, as character?
Very
so.
Much
I was expecting him to break out the jazz flute at any second as well.
Well, there's plenty of jazz flute going on the soundtrack, isn't there?
I'm just watching it as we talk. They're doing the very slow move around this and as well as watching Creep the following night.
Yeah.
Lots of inexplicable light sources on this. Like, how is this lit? If they are,
where's the light coming from?
Where's the light from?
Yeah.
And also there are lanterns lit around to do some of the lighting.
Yes,
but there's a point later on in this where it looks like he's getting the final bits of oil out.
He's run out of oil.
From Victorian times, from 70 years ago.
Don't
a lot of oil.
Was they just wasting oil, like lighting bits of?
Ross, remember. He can get out of the tunnel
at any point.
And grabs people. He can just walk out at any point.
Yeah,
because I think I completely missed Clive Swift's exposition. Yeah. I thought that the woman he had was someone he had taken and impregnated and was trying to reproduce with. Because later on, when he puts jewelry on her when she dies and puts her in like a kind of a vault, and you see all these other bodies in there, but they've all got jewelry. I was thinking, are these all other women he's caught at some point, tried to impregnate, and they've died over this period of time?
Not all of them, but maybe some of them, yes.
Yeah.
I've got to say at this point that the production design for these parts is astonishingly good. His makeup is incredible. His wife's makeup is incredible. All the corpses are incredible. The gore is incredible.
There's a lot of real meat in this.
Yeah, it
in comparison
years ahead of its time.
Of Dracula AD 1972.
Yeah.
It's a different
compare this to all the Hammer stuff we watched.
Yes.
This is by far they would cut away from so much of this stuff.
Oh god, yeah.
It's interesting.
I would like to watch the other cut of this to see what, if this is the edit, what the other stuff is.
There's people hung up on the wall with flayed faces. This is when was Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
After this, 74 or 76. I can't remember which.
Which is seen as like a groundbreaking.
Yeah. I think this foreshadows that.
Exactly.
There's lots of similarities.
I think that you're absolutely right. Of course, all of these things we're looking at, products of the time, and this was designed to be a B movie and all the rest of it. But as I was watching it, I thought the main trick that they missed here was, for me, what is scary is not being able to see what's in the dark and not knowing what's out there. And I've made reference to 2 modern horror films. The other one I'll come back to later. But this one, I thought The Descent, and we're talking about possibly doing The Descent later on. And The Descent absolutely gets that right. And the whole notion of it's someone who's very comfortable in the dark, and you are not.
Yeah.
And I thought that is really what they should have gone for. That there is somebody who has spent their entire life in these tunnels and knows them back to front. You don't.
Yeah.
And it should have been much closer in on as people go down into the tunnels.
Yeah.
Closer in on them. And that's that.
Well, you definitely get that in Creep as well, where you're in someone else's environment. But I feel like same in Creep and in this film. It's implied that this has been going on for years and years and years, where like people have been taken and eaten or taken away without anyone noticing, really, up until this point. And it's almost like, why is this suddenly escalated to this point where this person's going on a massive spree of like completely killing everyone, and it's kind of
there's no why, Ross.
You never need to question that when you're watching a horror film, Cleves, because that's otherwise
well written.
It would just be the guy sweeping the floor or something for an hour and a half because he would just be having a day off.
But the other thing I was thinking is like, if this was Victorians who were trapped in there. So that, and this is something, that's people, they would have been trapped in there for like over 60 years. That's,
well, there's generations of them.
They said there were men and women in there. And it was only the strongest survived.
So they've been able to reproduce.
But lost the power of speech.
But it's all in one generation.
Exactly.
Again, something where I feel they missed the trick. Because most of the dialogue, towards like the last 20 minutes of the film is oh my god! It's like, somebody say something.
I think that 12-hour shift probably did.
It didn't help. It didn't.
This is the point where we have the police go to the home of our OBE. What's his name?
Yeah,
James Manfred, and have a look round.
Civil service flat. MacGuffin, the money ? So I think this is an interesting way that they go into this film and then they totally lose this plot, and it's a bit disappointing. Where
100%,
you kind of think that there's a bit of what's Sherlock Holmes' brother? I can't remember.
Mycroft.
Yeah, so you think it's all a bit Mycroft Holmes, and it's all a bit like, oh, what's this guy been up to? And
yes,
is it some kind of double dealing? And
has he got something to do with this? Yeah.
The return of our Satanic Rites of Dracula theme. People in high power are up to no good.
Yeah, which would be more interesting than the fact that the two young people somehow have got end up getting embroiled in this. Like they get encountered at the beginning, and then they got brought back into it later on.
Yes, exactly.
Which is like completely unbelievable. Whereas you feel like if this guy had something to do with like, the covering
keeping
this up,
it secret.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they find that he's got a sex dungeon with CCTV in.
Yeah.
And then they turn around, and who's there?
Big Chris Lee.
Dressed as Mr. Ben. And he only did this film because he wanted to appear with Donald Pleasance, but then they don't appear in any scenes together, according to Wikipedia, because Christopher Lee is too tall.
What difference between them? Amazing.
Which is amazing.
But again, looking great. I never, until we did this podcast, I never appreciated how cool Christopher Lee was. I think I only saw
with the stuck-on moustache.
Yeah.
What I thought as well as I was watching this, and I like you guys, I read that thing saying that he worked for scale, so he wasn't really paid anything for it. But what I thought is, really, when you look at Christopher Lee's career, he basically just used to do 3 days' work and bugger off.
Absolutely.
He's never, with the exception of probably the original Dracula, Man with a Golden Gun. That's probably the biggest shift he's ever had to put in his life. Well, even then, probably Sarah. I haven't seen those films for a very, very long time. But yeah, but if you think about it, like in the Star Wars prequels, it's only a couple of scenes really, and then a body double a lot of the time. As we've seen, Satanic Rites of Dracula, 3 scenes.
He's a savvy chap.
He was in over 200 films. What was his 200th film?
Oh, I don't know.
Released, I think, in 1990.
Oh, Willy Wonka? Charlie
Willy Wonka? No, it wasn't Charlie Willy Wonka.
1990.
It was a sequel
Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
Well done.
I remember
nothing in my hands. There is no
I
phone
remember
or
it being
in
a
my
feature on TVAM at the time.
But it's fucking. But you look how many films him and Peter Cushing did, though.
Pros.
They must
Absolute
have been
pros.
absolutely
In
loaded.
the year he did Horror Express. I think Peter Cushing did 15 films. Considering that was the year he was widowed and mourning.
Yeah.
It's just mental.
Well, this is the same year as Horror Express and Dracula AD 1972. There's this. Then they did Satanic Rites of Dracula, like 9 months after or something.
They must have been having such a wonderful life. Like
they must have been having such a wonderful payday.
All work is good work, darling. All work is good, darling. You know, you're very actors.
Yeah, so he's in it for 5 minutes, doesn't do very much, and then basically sets up the MacGuffin and kind of destroys the MacGuffin in one go. Should I explain what a MacGuffin is for people that don't really know what a MacGuffin is?
Go for it. Yeah.
So MacGuffin is a Hitchcock kind of convention where you think the film is going to be about one thing, and then usually in the first act, that thing is chucked out with the dishwater. So most famously, it's Psycho, where Psycho starts with Marion Crane stealing the money.
The money, yeah.
She goes to the motel and then she's murdered, and then obviously the film twists on that, and the
money's put in the car, and the car's put in the swamp.
Yeah, and then it's all about who murdered Marion. Where this film is quite like that. It's like this guy is murdered. Who is the murderer? But I don't think they develop it quite enough. It's quite interesting in this one scene, but this is a scene that's like 4 minutes long. And then
mainly put in because Chris Lee said he would do it, I think.
Yeah.
And so they can pick Christopher Lee in the titles and on the poster.
And he's got a much bigger type font size than everyone else in the title sequence. I really like the part where Donald Pleasance calls Norman Rossington a pompous ponce, which I think is brilliant. You pompous ponce. And then the bit where Chris Lee is talking to them, it looks like he's breaking the fourth wall because he's addressing the camera directly. He's looking straight down the barrel. He's not looking to one side. And I did find that weirdly disturbing.
Unarousing.
I get so bored with ordinary bars, so I come here. It's a bit off the beaten track, but the people are interesting.
Glass of the unusual, Mr. Pleasance?
Thank you. Most of them drink pills from Holsten. It's still brewed and matured in Germany, and when they mature it, nearly all the sugar turns into alcohol. Wonderful. I have mine from this distinctive bottle, but some people prefer the can.
Pils, the odd lager from Holsten.
So then we go back to the young couple's flat, which I was saying to Beck that I can remember.
Yeah.
Like my childhood looked like that flat.
Yeah.
It's just that gas
Whitewashed
cooker.
walls.
The gas
Did you
cooker.
notice just American paraphernalia everywhere?
Yeah. Oscar Sam poster.
Jimi Hendrix posters.
If we have got any American listeners, they'll tell us. Because I don't think, like, if I went to live abroad, I don't think I'd just have pictures of. I wouldn't have the Union Jack up. I wouldn't have pictures of Britain around and things like that. Oh, just to remind me that I'm British or anything like that. Because it's things like he has all kinds of very weird kind of American paraphernalia up, which I just felt they've just gone. We need to remind the audience he's American, darling. We need to remind the audience he's an American. Is there any American paraphernalia you can find in the second-hand junk shops of Peckham? Away you go. Here's to Bob.
Portobello Road Market.
Yeah, you go. All that, yeah.
Then cut back to the cannibal's lair. It looks like the cannibal's wife has died, and he's trying to bring her back to life by shaking her around and grunting at her. Lots of straw. Where's the straw come from?
I wrote down that brevity is not the key word of this film. It's very long scenes. And I thought, well, bearing in mind that, in most horror films, the antagonist or, the monster himself is kind of kept in shadow to a certain degree. You don't really... with this one, it was almost kind of asking you to empathise with him.
Yeah,
it was just like he just had a shit lot in life.
I think that's a big part of it, that you are meant to kind of empathise with, like, this guy is the last of his line. His wife just cocked it. Everyone else is just on a rack.
Patricia in the room with all the mummified bodies. Imagine what that place would smell like.
They did say at the end, this place stinks.
Yeah.
But not enough to vomit, you know.
No, okay. They were tough London coppers from the 70s, Ross, that's why.
So go back to the man. The cannibal man. Is he an actor we know? Has he done anything?
Well, we can Google him and find out, but I don't know him for anything else. I mean, I actually think he manages, with the shortcomings of what he's being given here, he actually manages to give quite a good performance as a screaming lunatic whose only words are "mind the door."
And he doesn't get to say until
right at the end.
Last 10 minutes.
Although the mind the doors bit is something which my parents have been saying to me all my life. And I've seen this film.
Yeah.
So that's just a little window into my upbringing.
Yeah. So then the next bit is one of my favourite parts of the film, and it's the immortal line, "What's the matter, Terry?" And this is because the three guys are walking up the platform.
With a broom.
I don't know if they're cleaners or what they're meant to be, workers of some kind. The station is closed at this point, and then you have the brilliant pivotal scene of the lights flickering. He shouts, "What's the matter, Terry?" And then Terry comes around the corner with a shovel stuck in his head, which is absolutely brilliant.
But it's what they've cut out a bit of the shovel, haven't they? And then he's put it over his head like
glued
that.
It to his head.
And he's trying to balance it on. You can see him trying to balance it.
How he would still be able to walk with a shovel stuck in his brain, I don't know.
But this is the part of brutal murderous rage which I talked about. And this is where he gets the damage on his head with a very slow pounding by a broom on his head.
Broom. If you get hit on the head with a broom, I don't think it's going to hurt that much.
But then he uses the same broom to, like,
the broom handle
and
some viscera
dangling off the end.
Wispy viscera.
A flat balloon.
Yeah, it does. It sticks out his back.
Wispy viscera.
Wispy viscera.
Great name for a
I
band.
saw them live. Yeah, I saw them live supporting the Flaming Lips. They're amazing.
John Peel. And next we've got Wispy Viscera.
Wispy Viscera.
Speaking of John Peel, I never realised that one of the guys who is a follower of ours on Twitter is the guy on Love.
Yeah, Simon Love.
Yeah, it never occurred to me.
And they played on John Peel's show.
Yes, they did, and I was working late at 7 at the time, and I texted them, and they read out my text on that, and Catherine said, "Hello, Ross."
I
didn't realise that.
Yeah, that
wow.
Cool. Yeah, so hello.
After the murderous rage, it then kind of cuts to he's a very pithy coroner. Most coroners are extremely somber and. You know, the damage here has been utterly massive. You know, the huge amounts of impacts here you can see. Whereas this bloke's like, "Oh, look at this lot, eh? Oh, this." And then he goes, "Look at this one, gone right away through him." You know, he's very kind of like lackadaisical for a coroner.
They pay a lot of attention to the black guy who's just, he never says anything, but he's always
that's
filling out a little form and stuff.
It's a weird composition, isn't it? The guy there, has he got dreadlocks as well?
No, he's just got a lot of afro hair.
It's quite interesting because there's two black characters in this film, albeit small characters on screen. It's quite interesting to see black people represented in British horror films because I've got to say they've been incredibly rare up to this point. I think the only one I can think of the top of my head is the black vampire lady from Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Rites of Dracula, yeah.
I can't.
But there also Johnny Aguilar's girlfriend.
Oh yes, Blanche Hunt. Yeah.
You got rolled into the river.
She is. She was kind of independently famous at that point, though, so she doesn't really count. I think she was Mick Jagger's girlfriend at that point. So
you mentioned that in our first episode. If you haven't listened to that, guys,
it's a great episode.
It then cuts back to the students, and I've just put more utterly banal, more dull
boring
scenes. Shit. Again, I just don't care about these two at all.
No, they're the weak link, and I do think they make the film feel quite episodic because the police stuff, the stuff with the intrigue and the people in high places kind of melodrama, all that's very good. And then it cuts back to them, and they're just a couple of drips, aren't they? What I do like then is that it cuts to our heroes, Pleasance and Rossington, in the pub, where they're eating sausages off a plate just on the bar. And
that made me feel so nostalgic. I just wanted to be in the pub.
I was hungry. Delicious.
Well, I can't think of anything better to do than eat just sausages off a plate in a pub.
I wish I could high five you now.
The pub looks amazing, doesn't it? It's a beautiful looking pub.
Yeah.
And then they just decide to get pissed. And then there's a really weird scene where they seem to be improvising and they're just playing pinball. And he starts going on about the Queen.
Like singing the national anthem.
Yeah.
And the Queen is mad and going, I'm on 30 quid a week. And he does. And I put, what is the point of this scene? It's just nothing for the narrative. Nothing.
It makes the film 200% better.
Yeah.
And maybe not ever want to work in a pub. You would have to
deal with drunks. And he's like, you crazy coppers. I'm going to lose my license. Of course, it's 1974, so therefore chucking out time is about 10:20.
No, it's very exciting. That's one of my favourite scenes.
Cut back to the man who's nursing the wound where he got inflicted by the slow impact from the broom. Just to remind you, he's got a bad head.
Yeah.
But then we also go to the college. I'm assuming it's a university bookshop where they've got.
Yeah, it looks great.
I just love. I want to go to this bookshop.
I like the bookshop.
They've got the whole wall of all the penguins,
orange.
The orange spines. Yeah. Why? To go and get the student to come to the police station so they can ask him one question. Then
it doesn't. That part makes no sense at all. But then we do have a good jump scare where the teenage couple or whatever they are. I don't know if they're teenagers. Are finally separated, and we kind of feel like we're heading towards some kind of dramatic conclusion where she leaves her books on the train, gets off the train, and she's like, I've left my books on the train. So the boyfriend, Alex, runs back on the train, the door's closed.
Worst acting.
The train goes, but then there is a genuine jump scare because I'd forgotten it happens, where the guy comes round and he's got his hand over her face and his hand looks absolutely disgusting. Again, the makeup just excels itself because it doesn't look like he's just wrapped in toilet tissue and copy decks or PVA.
Just previous to this, they've got some version of the plague or something.
Well, we find that out, but then that's not that goes nowhere and is never mentioned again.
This person has never seen sunlight, wasn't it? He kind of managed to intimate that. He's got very low iron or vitamin D or something like that.
But it's I'm interested in that bit. What you were talking then, but are you going to elaborate on that part or no?
The American student decides to take matters into his own hands. Very slow denouement. He goes down to try and find her, manages to find his way down into the secret layer. He hears, we learn that...
Looked in some really cool shops on the way.
Yeah, open all at weird times.
Yeah,
like a fish and chip shop and things like desperately looking for her. He kind of manages
to think of Rocky with the pet shop.
Interesting. Yeah. You're the only person in history to have thought that, but nice. And then meanwhile, this is cut between, the man, the cannibal, as he is trying to suggest to the kidnapped woman that he wants her to be his new mate by just saying, mind the doors for people.
Yeah. Well, I've said she wakes up cuddling a septic boil.
How many times has Helen done that, John?
I mean, the plotting and it's mainly the plotting and a bit of the dialogue of this film is pretty shoddy, but I do think the actual horrifying aspects of it are pretty horrifying because I think the production design is so good. You can't fail to be kind of grossed out by her waking up and then this fucking creepy guy covered in boils and with spit hanging out of his mouth.
And lots of spit.
Trying to use the power of drool to win her over in some way, wasn't it?
Mate, just get your boils and your septic head away from me. It's disgusting.
What was frustrating for me is that she hits him around the head and that incapacitates him at one point. Surely you would have realised at that point that all I need to do
is hit him around the head.
Just go back and kill him.
Well, but
panic, I guess. People are in a panic situation, I guess.
You didn't see him get hit round the head with a sweeping brush cleave, so you're not to know. If you're the character, you're not watching the film, you don't know. So then, it's a very kind of slow chase sequence where she runs away, he follows her, shouting, "Mind the doors," and Alex, the fairly,
which is iconic,
boyfriend. It is iconic. I do think that's really clever, and I do really like that part, but I got a bit frustrated with the boyfriend Alex just stumbling around stupidly in the dark and not hearing anything.
And could have been done a lot better.
Not hearing anything, because she's screaming blue murder, and then he doesn't seem to hear that until right at the last minute. And then
he calls her name, and then she shouts out Alex while she's being molested.
Yes.
If this is you and your partner, you would be shout to hit him in the head. I've hit him in the head before, and you would be talking, not just like I think like you would
just minutes of oh man, alive.
That's going to be the pre-title sequence.
I know.
You would communicate with each other. I feel like you would work better as a team to defeat the person who's trying to attack you.
Next time you're attacked by a cannibal on London Underground, Cleves, and Beck is coming to your assistance, I want to find out what you discuss with her.
I think me and Beck would be we would destroy them.
Here in the head. I know that someone has pissed on your leg in a festival, and all he said is, "I'm sorry."
No, I poked him in the eye, John.
Oh, you poked him in the eye.
I poked him in the eye.
And I know that you were once urinating in a public toilet, and a man asked you to hit him.
No, the man attacked me from behind. And I fell into the urinal, and then he asked me to hit him.
Yeah, and what did you do?
I punched him in the face and tried to roll him onto the railway tracks, and then the police stopped me.
Again, this is more exciting.
Why were you in a public toilet
because I needed
next
a piss.
to railway tracks?
It was in a train station.
All right, I see. Yeah.
I broke my hand punching.
So next time a cannibal's coming after you, you're gonna have the forethought, are you?
I think that I wouldn't get into any of this trouble in any of this.
I simply would not be kidnapped by the cannibal.
Exactly.
When I watched Whiplash, a film that I absolutely hated.
Me too, by the way.
Yeah,
I hate Whiplash.
The first thing I thought was, if this bald bastard was talking to me like this, I would just punch him in the face, and that would be the end of the film. 10 minutes into the film.
John. It's absolutely the ridiculous thing is when he's in that car crash, proper car crash, and goes, I have to get to the rehearsal. It's like, mate, that doesn't happen.
No,
you would go to hospital. Yeah, and then, I've quit, but I've still got. I did nothing for me at all. Nothing.
Idiotic.
Anyway, that's an aside. That's another podcast.
Whiplash cast. I'm watching the film as we're doing this. We skipped shitloads, so that we
The police just turn up. There must be a scene cut at some point, and the fact that they just turn up and are there.
They found their way in.
It's weird,
but I think
they find the scene and it's like, you talk to the police. You wait here. I'm going to do this.
No, but that's the bit that I really like.
Yeah, because it felt quite real. It felt quite real. And
we've watched so many films where the action is finished, and then it literally says the end.
The train goes off the cliff and it finishes.
You're just like, what? Hang on, Dracula AD 1972. The end. Satanic Rites of Dracula. The end. You don't even see the characters reunited.
Just assume they are.
They come in and they're just like, this is disgusting. Like, it stinks. And then the line, what a way to live. And I think that really summed it up because it's such a low key, quite dismal, miserable film. And I think it's very the humour is really black humour in it. And I think without Donald Pleasance, this wouldn't be a very good film.
Yeah, it wouldn't have the notoriety it's got now.
No, and I think he really almost single-handedly lifts it like leagues above loads of other stuff just by playing this character in this really atypical way.
But he doesn't make him like unbelievable either.
No,
he puts him across as amusing and entertaining.
Yeah,
but also
eccentric, but believable.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
As we're coming to the end, there were two films that kind of came to mind when I was watching it. So first of all was The Descent, and how I felt that The Descent was the best representation of things in the dark, and they understand the dark and you don't. The other thing was, I thought, in many ways, have you guys seen Bone Tomahawk?
Yes.
Yes, it really made me think of Bone Tomahawk.
That's brilliant. I love that.
There you go. Me too. Yeah. When I saw Bone Tomahawk, I didn't know what to expect, and as I was watching, I was like, "This is genuinely creeping me out a bit." But that is the model, isn't it? There are some people, and they've been untouched by civilization, and they're deranged. They're unstoppable. They not that they can't be killed, but they're going to pull you apart. They're going to destroy you. And they are far away from civilization. So as I was watching it, I was like,
blood tracks.
Really? Yeah, but I was like, this is the model, but it needed way more, and it could have been, because when you're on the tube, and I think for people that have never been to London, if you listen to this abroad, tube. But me too. But having lived in London, the amount of times where they just go, ladies and gentlemen, we're just being held outside a station for a minute. We'll be, and then you're just looking at the tunnel. Sometimes of course it pulls up, and there's just doors that are boarded up. And you do think there is something fantastically creepy about the tube. And of course, there are a number of stations along the tube as well, in case people don't know this, which are now just disrepair. And that's where they filmed this. They filmed this one in the Strand.
Yeah, Beck went on a tour recently with her parents as a present for them of one of the abandoned stations.
Cool.
Oh, amazing!
And they had to go down tunnels, and there was a point where they said, when a train comes, you need to turn your torch off because it will dazzle the driver. So they had to, when a train came, they all had to turn their torch off, absolutely pitch black, and then a train would go past them.
Yeah,
amazing.
They went to a station where it was a secret base in the Second World War, and what would happen is they would have someone who would be at the front of the train, and the train would go in there, just the front of the train would go in, and then it would stop, and that person would come out of a secret door, and
open the door,
and then it would carry on.
Brilliant.
And we got this great, they give us a great dossier, it's like a secret file with all the information about it and stuff in there.
Absolutely. So I think the underground is such a rich vein and such a rich idea of what you could do with the darkness, the unknown down there, and it does feel like a whole subterranean world. And for me, it's like, it could, as with so many of the things we looked at, I thought, oh my God, if you redid this now,
I know,
and rather than having them, having the guy being virtually mute, I thought, well, what if you have it so it's like being like some sort of odd religious cult that have gone down there, and people have been told, people from the outer world are all corrupt.
Yeah.
And they want to destroy us, and they want to destroy our way of life. And rather than just him coming out at the one tube station, imagine if they're kind of constantly moving around the network. So what's going on down there, and why can't we see? That would be fantastic.
Right. So have we come to the end of this then, I think
we have, yeah. Well,
apart from the very, very end, where the suggestion is that the cannibal is still alive.
I don't know what to make of that. I always hate things like that, where it's
he's not dead.
Yeah, it's I always hate kind of weird. You always think some kind of crass American producer is like, guys, what it would be great if you put on the end, mind the doors, and you think he's still alive. And,
maybe he's still alive. It could be two.
Lines up the sequel, and it's a guy with a big fat cigar saying, in a Hawaiian shirt or something.
John Nathan Turner.
No, that spoils it.
The other thing is, have you seen the American poster? Have you seen the American poster for it? It's got nothing to do with the film.
They tried to make it look like a zombie film, didn't they? Yeah.
The Bloody Yanks.
Would we recommend this film?
Yes.
Okay.
Not for me, I'm afraid.
Not for you.
Sorry.
This film reminded me of other films which I really like. So it made me think of American Werewolf in London. It made made me think of Creep, but I don't. I'm glad I watched it because it is something which has been a bit of like a family sort of
touchstone.
Yeah.
Point.
Whereas my mum is really scared of this film, and it's always it was a really scary film. My dad is. If we ever mention the tube or anything, my dad's always like, mind the doors. So I'm glad I've seen it, and I think Donald Pleasence is brilliant, and I'm glad I've seen him in a performance which I can understand why he is why people think he's good. No, I probably wouldn't watch it again.
Really? So what are the scores on the doors then?
It's a 1 for me, I think.
I hate to be following the, but also for me, because at least like Dracula 1972, there were things which I could really laugh at in it. Whereas with this, it was scant on laughs and long on quite depressing bits, really. It was a bit like, and again, after a long day at work, I don't really, I will, asterisk next to my number 1 may have been a different score if I hadn't watched it after a 12-hour.
John, what are you giving it out of 5?
5 for Donald Pleasence, easily. And I think for the rest of the film, it's a 3 for me.
So an average score of 4?
Maybe it's a 2 then.
Oh gosh, it's down to a 2. So this is probably our lowest scoring film we've done so far.
Yeah,
I imagine.
but I think Donald Pleasence is a definite 5, and I think he really pulls the film up by its bootstraps. And I bet the director was really chuffed he was there, because otherwise I think it would have been a very mediocre film. The production design is great, but I don't think the pacing or the screenplay and particularly the plotting, I don't think there's a lot of filler and
not enough thriller.
It's a shame because it is such a great conceit. It has a great conceit, and those ideas have gone on to work again.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, James. I think that if you look at the films this potentially has influenced, it's a bit like the Velvet Underground of films, where the band themselves aren't that great, and they've maybe got like 3 good songs, but they've inspired millions of great bands. This film, we can look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I feel like it influenced. I don't know if it did for definite, but
definitely
American Werewolf in London, there's Creep, there's loads of other things where I watched it and thought, oh my God, like, just the thing with Christopher Lee, I feel like that scene has been done a million times since with like the Sherlock, Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat Sherlock with, Mycroft turning up and giving away a bit of kind of background in a posh suit. I think that's something that's been retreaded many times, but this actual kind of source material, as they call it, isn't as strong as I remember, or you two and me noticing the glaring plot holes has kind of made me think, the fact that he can just literally come out of his lair to stab people in the head with a shovel does make you think, like, why doesn't he just go to the shop?
What? Why didn't they just go and get help? Let's go. Let's go.
It's understandable if they were in there, and maybe if it had been explained that there's been some work done on the line,
which has broken the thing through and stuff.
But the fact that
and
he
in
just
two generations, they wouldn't have lost the idea of civilization or language. So maybe, say that it was like the 1840s, or, the first ever line, or I don't know. But
if they break through to something from the Victorian time now, maybe,
Yeah.
Oh no, I'd say, or set it in the 1920s.
Yes, but
that'd be quite.
Like James has said, for quite a lot of these films, like, the idea itself is brilliant. The kernel of the idea is brilliant, but I think but to not be petty, you're talking about films that weren't designed to be reviewed in 49 years' time.
I do appreciate, because I did think this was clearly meant to be a B movie as part of like a grindhouse night. Where you see 4 films and just churned out. So
and actually, I get that, is a lot better than I think it was meant to possibly be.
Yes,
because they got Donald Pleasence in. Whereas, I have watched something like the original Night of the Living Dead and thought, God, this is boring as sin. the black and white Romero one. Just thought, this is rubbish. It just looks stupid. And then this, I think this again.
But again, that influenced so much stuff, though. I think.
Yes, it did. But I think this also maybe with some of the gore in this did influence some of those later Romero ones where the gore is just non-stop, isn't it? People's arms coming off and all
guts
that kind
being
of
pulled
stuff.
up. Yeah.
This compared to the other stuff that was going on at the time, this is much, much, much more grim and gory and horrific in terms of like body horror and just corpses and meat everywhere.
Now we are going to try and do something horrific where we talk about something which we've enjoyed since our last podcast. Has anyone got anything?
It's going to, I have been very busy back at work because school has returned post-lockdown, so I haven't had time to indulge.
Okay, well, maybe I'll do two tonight then to cover for you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
To cover for us.
To cover for you. No, so I was going to talk about Parasite, which is the Oscar-winning film from a couple of years back, which I hadn't seen up until now. And I was just so blown away by it.
Really?
Really impressed by it. I loved it. It was really good. And I felt it had some horror elements to it. I had some little links to this film as well. People
underground,
living underground.
I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was
good. I thought it was 45 minutes too long.
Yeah, I thought it was way too long.
But you could have caught, and they banging you over the head. Rich people, poor people. And I was like, I get it. I get it. I get it.
I did. And I liked the man who was like, respect.
So that was one of them. And the other thing I was going to cover is something which we just started watching. So Apple TV have got their own streaming service, which is sort of their version of Netflix, but they don't. It's very limited amount of content on there. But I found like everything on there is just really high quality. And there's a series on there called Calls. Which we started watching recently, and the episodes are probably about 10-12 minutes long, and the whole thing, we've watched 2 episodes so far, and it is just you listening to phone call. What you're seeing on screen is sort of abstract, machine distorted graphics and stuff, but also with the text of what the people are saying between the 2 phone calls, and they are very sort of Twilight Zone-y. So the first one, I don't want to. There are spoilers in this, but I don't want to give away too much on the first one. As a couple who are the guy's trying to split up with his girlfriend who's living on the other side of the country. But while he's trying to do that, she starts saying there's someone outside the house, and then she gets cut off. And then the guy starts talking to his other girlfriend and saying, "Have you split up with her?" No, blah blah. And they start talking, and he's saying, "Well, I'll come round later on tonight." And there's a bit in there where he rings and I say, I've just gone down for a drink, I'll be up in a minute. And she goes, what are you talking about? I haven't come home yet. And it's a case of that. He thinks he's just had sex with his girlfriend, but his girlfriend's not there. So who is the person in the bed? And then there's other stuff starts happening, and then they get the emergency services start getting involved and stuff, and then it's just like it's a massive worldwide event happening with all this weird stuff happening, but it's all just done through the phone calls. Really good, really like hairs on the back of your neck. The first one's got Karen Gillan doing it, is one of the characters in it, and it's just like you don't see anything, but everything is just in your mind.
That's weird. That was
very good,
isn't it?
Yeah, very good. So I highly recommend that if anyone can get hold of that.
I have watched the first half of Werner Herzog's Nosferatu, and I enjoyed the first half very much.
Have you seen it before?
No, I haven't.
So that I saw that version before I saw the original black and white one.
Okay.
As a kid, and I can remember just being terrified by that version of us. There's that shot when he sort of he's biting the neck and he sort of comes up and then he has to. Yeah, it's just I can remember just being so frightened of that version. The progress of it is stately. It's not a rip-roaring film, but I think that's the idea of this weird kind of dread
that kind of lingers throughout it. It's beautifully shot. It's very weird. It reminded me a bit of Horror Express, actually, because I feel like all of the characters are like post-synced dubbed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the audio is quite weird in that way that you get with a lot of European cinema, that the voices just sound weirdly disconnected from the action. I have maybe a listener tune in next time to find out what I think of the second half of the film.
So when did you watch it? Did you watch that on this Plex TV?
No. I recorded it from Talking Pictures. It was on Talking Pictures the other night on our Virgin box.
And seeing that we're talking about Herzog and Kinski, I will then recommend, if people have never seen it, you must watch the amazing documentary, My Best Fiend.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all about their relationship, Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski. It's amazing. It's genuinely one of the best things ever. It's fantastic. It starts off with Klaus Kinski's tour that he did, where he just went around Germany just saying that he was Jesus. And just like one man show on stage, all in German translated, really upsetting religious people when he's going, and I am Christ, like that, people shouting at him, blasphemy from the, and going, shut up, you're nothing to me, and it's like, this is what he was like. You never knew. And it's like, oh, I'm involved already in this. And then, just one quick highlight from it is Klaus Kinski goes, he was having a manic episode, and we decided he was too dangerous to be outside, so we locked him in the bathroom. The next day, when we opened the door, he had utterly destroyed it. He had turned the entire bathroom to powder. The sink, the bath, there was nothing left. He had destroyed it all with his hands. And it's like, whoa! And it just, that's just two little snippets from how amazing it is. My Best Fiend. Awesome.
I do like the making of Fitzcarraldo clip that I've seen, where he's ranting and raving, going insane. And then the natives are just stood watching, and they're like stony faced, and then they offer to kill him because he's just so rude.
And again, on the documentary, they say that while making Fitzcarraldo, there was an accident, and someone who was clearing like some of the jungle foliage away had cut off his own leg with the chainsaw. And thus causing, a huge amount of, and apparently Kinski was livid that the attention was taken away from him while people were dealing with this poor man who'd lost his leg. It's amazing. It's just like, how did he even exist? How do you live like that? But totally worth it. Yes.
So the next episode is going to be a listener's choice episode. So we will be having a poll. We're going to be going between The Mask of the Red Death, Village of the Damned, The Descent, Night of the Demons.
I'm scared to think about watching that again.
Or The Abominable Dr. Phoebes.
Vibes.
The Abominable Dr. Phoebes.
Okay, until next time, everyone, stay safe wherever you are, and thank you for listening.
Love, light, and peace.
Happy day.
You have been listening to The General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
So this was filmed 2 years after Spearhead from Space, which is, of course, the only Doctor Who story that's filmed entirely upon 16mm film.